Good morning, everyone. I'm Drew Buchanan. I'm a theater student at Duke Ellington School of the Arts, and I actually did, thank you. I actually did used to dance with Koyaba when I was 3 years old, and here I am. Hi. Here I am, and yeah, I'm happy you all could make it to the 10-year anniversary of the Dr. Luther King Memorial, and I will be singing a poem, I Dream a World by Langston Hughes. I dream a world where man, no other man will scorn, will love, will bless the earth, in peace its paths adorn. I dream a world where all will know sweet freedom's way, where greed no longer saps the soul, nor avarice blights our day. A world, I dream, where black or white, whatever race you be, will share the bounties of earth, and every man is free. Where wretchedness will hang its head, and joy, like a pearl, attends the needs of all mankind. Of such I dream my world. Thank you. Please stand for the invocation of Kai Corbett.
Let us pray. Dear God, thank you for being amazing, wonderful, and loving. Thank you for keeping us safe and healthy through the many difficulties that exist in the world today, including the coronavirus, racism, poverty, depression, and violence. Thank you for reminding us that we have a long history of overcoming tough times. Please continue to make us strong so that we can fulfill the purpose that you sent us here to do. Please also continue to care for and comfort those who are mourning, physically hurting, and hungry. Provide a way for them as only you can. Thank you for the opportunity for us to come together to celebrate your servant, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Although many of us gathered here today were not yet born when he walked the earth, fighting for peace and justice, we have benefited from his good work, and we are grateful. Thank you for his life and legacy. Thank you for the many men and women who joined him in the fight for freedom, and thank you for those who worked to make sure that this memorial will stand for decades as a reminder of where we've been and where we are and where we can go as a country and as African American people. Thank you for reminding us as young people that our fight for equality and justice is not over, and we cannot rest on what our ancestors and elders have done. Thank you for giving us the strength to take the baton and run toward freedom so that our children and grandchildren can reap the benefits. Thanks for giving us the power to fight against racism, sexism, greed, and hatefulness. We stand on the shoulders of greatness, and we have greatness within us. Bless today's ceremony and everyone that helped put it together. Please give a special blessing to Mr. Lee and his staff as they work to empower our community. Bless every single young person that is involved in today's program. As our theme says, we are the nation's hope. We are the young, the gifted, and promised generation. And finally, God, as is written on the south wall of this memorial, Dr. King reminded us that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Thank you for driving out the darkness and loving us all. In Jesus' name I pray, amen and ashe.
Please remain standing for the Black National Anthem by Angela Whitaker and Matthew Whitaker.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastising rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with the steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers died. We have come over the way that the tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our native land. God of our wearies, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our native land.
Thank you. You may be seated. We will now have remarks from Reverend Thomas L. Bowen from the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs. He's the Director of the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs and the Interim Director of Mayor's Office on African American Affairs and Mayor's Office of Fathers, Men, and Boys.
Truly, it's an honor and a blessing to be in the presence of these young people who are not content with the principles being lighted in the form of a candle during Kwanzaa, but who are determined that those candles and what they represent, that light does not go out the remaining days of the year. My name is Thomas Bowen, and I bring you greetings on behalf of Mayor Muriel Bowser, who insisted that I not take a Saturday off, who did everything but send me a text to remind me to be at the Kimon Memorial on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. What can be said about our very able and capable CEO of this foundation, Mr. Harry Johnson? He has done the work. I can't believe it's nearly 10 years ago that one of his fundraising partners, Jarvis Stewart, then a member of my church, brought us here for a sneak preview, and the stories and all that it took for Mr. Johnson and his army of folk to build this monument will inspire your soul. I must give props to Kimon, who's a cultural icon, who reminds us of the true meaning of our living. But these young people, Mr. Johnson, I'm just so glad that you had Brother Corbett to come get an invocation, and not somebody who walked with Dr. King, but someone who walks in the beautiful light of his footsteps. And somebody please tell Miss Angela Whitaker that she didn't write that song. Made me think Melba Moore, who fills our heart with joy and hope. We pause taking on this day a Sabbath, a day of celebration, for all the time that led to the building of this wonderful monument that summons people from all over the world to Washington, D.C. It is holy ground, a sacred place. We make our way here upon the anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King each April the 4th, amidst the blossoming of the cherry blossoms that give us hope. We come here amidst the frigid cold of January 15th to lay a wreath at this monument. But more than coming here, we must leave from this place determined to make a change, determined to make a difference, and by all means, to leave to these young people a world better intact than that which we found it. It's not about whether we leave them in financial debt. It's about whether we leave them in moral debt. And as we teeter-totter on our democracy, we know that we have work to do. And if we're not capable and if we're too tired to do the work, then step aside. These young people are very capable and able. So how fitting it is to showcase not just our future, but our present. These are difficult times, but they're not impossible times. This is when we show who we are. This is when we stand upon those principles. I leave you with the words of Dr. King, that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in times of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. Let us stand tall, just like the figure of Dr. King behind me coming out of that mountain of despair. But out of that, we can have a stone of hope. Let's continue to give strength to these young people. Let's give strength and values to all that Dr. King stood for. And by all means, let's continue to march on.
Thank you for that. We will now have remarks from Leonard Lee, CEO of Invocation Institute.
Thank you. For all of those ancestors who have come before us, for all of those ancestors we have lost along our own personal journey, and for all those generations who have yet to come, I greet you with a heartfelt good morning and a hello. It is my honor, on behalf of the Memorial Foundation and Invocation Institute, to welcome you to our hope, the young, the gifted, and promised generation who are here to mark the 10-year anniversary of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. The year 2011 was a year of devastation, from drought, earthquake, hurricane, and tsunami, popular uprisings in Egypt, Libya, and Syria, and at home, class struggles playing out on Wall Street and in public parks, of gridlock and stalemate in Washington, the continued slide past equality by the poor and dispossessed, and cries of sensible gun control after Senator Gabby Giffords was shot in the head when a gunman opened fire outside a supermarket. On March 11th, an earthquake in northern Japan triggered a tsunami which sent 3 reactors at Fukushima nuclear power plant into meltdown and killed thousands along the Pacific Ring of Fire. And on July 8th, in Cape Canaveral, Florida, NASA launched the space shuttle on its final mission, terminating America's 30-year shuttle program and beginning the commercialization of space. President Obama, Vice President Biden, Secretary of State Clinton, and other top officials watched video of the firefight that killed Osama bin Laden in Pakistan and Occupy Wall Street protesters occupied Zuccotti Park in Lower Manhattan, sparking protests around the country and abroad. On Tuesday, August 23, 2011, a 5.8 magnitude earthquake centered 84 miles southwest of Washington, D.C., damaged the Washington Monument and many other buildings throughout the area. And by the end of that week, Hurricane Irene visited our region and delayed the official dedication of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, which was scheduled to take place on August 28th, the 48th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Prior to the dedication of this memorial, on October the 16th, 2011, many people of all ages barely knew of Dr. King's extraordinary work and recall his incalculable contributions to our nation and to the world as a student of peace and unwavering advocate for democracy, justice, hope, and love for his people and all others, even his enemies. But today, August 16, 2011, 10 years later, in the midst of a world pandemic, extreme weather, continued violence against poor people of color and marginalized communities, and gridlock still in stalemate in Washington, embroiled in an ongoing coup d'etat, seeking to disenfranchise millions of black and brown voters, we the people bear witness that this memorial was not designed and constructed as a monument to past progress in social justice in this country, but rather conceived and built to foster an understanding and inspire peaceful progress toward equality and justice, not for your people or for my people, but for all people in the years ahead. Together we come to bear witness of the need for persistence in subsequent generations to use their gifts to struggle for equal rights in America. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, it is my extreme honor and pleasure to be with you today, validating our hope, our young, gifted, and promised generation, marking the 10-year anniversary of the dedication of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. I say and thank you very much.
We'll now proceed into remarks from Kimon Freeman. Kimon Freeman is an award-winning playwright, founder of the Black Love Festival, WDC Mayor's Art Award finalist for Excellence in Service to the Arts in 2006. He is a founding board member for the nonprofits Words and Beats in Life and co-founder of Bum Rush the Boards, the largest annual youth chess tournament in WDC. He is a 2010 Green for All Fellow and co-founder of We Act Radio, DC's best social justice radio station. 2017 by Washington City Paper and first place PRNDI award winner. Currently, he is directing his first feature film, Patriotic Treason, the story of John Brown.
Peace and blessings. All right. When I say We Act Radio, y'all say do something. We Act Radio. We broadcast live on the radical side of Martin Luther King Avenue, and I'm here to represent the radical side of Martin Luther King. We must recognize that we can't solve our problem now until there's a radical redistribution of economic and political power. This means a revolution of values and other things. We must now see that the evils of racism, economic exploitation, and militarism are all tied together. You can't really get rid of one without getting rid of the others. The whole structure of American life must be changed. America is a hypocritical nation, and we must put our own house in order. The evils of capitalism are as real as the evils of militarism and the evils of racism. We're saying that something is wrong with capitalism. There must be better distribution of wealth, and maybe America must move toward a democratic socialism. Does it sound familiar? This is what we're talking about. The Atlantic magazine, great publication, has an article out right now. It's entitled The Second Assassination of Martin Luther King. Because they will have you believe that this man made only two speeches. I have a dream and the mountaintop. And we need to realize that we got to fill in the blanks here. Otherwise, we are contributing to that second assassination of Martin Luther King if we don't do something. We have to acknowledge that this monument stands in a city that has the average white family with 81 times the wealth of the average black family. This monument stands in a city where it's the most dangerous city in all of America for a black woman of any economic, social background to give birth. This monument stands in a city where they allowed, east of the river, the blackest section still left in this gentrified city, to go without a bookstore for over 25 years. This monument stands in a city that, at the intersection of Martin Luther King Avenue and Malcolm X Avenue, in the midst of a food desert, has 7 liquor stores in 1 block radius. October 16th is an important day to me because it's the anniversary of Harper Ferry, John Brown, the first Civil War. It's also the anniversary of the Million Man March, the largest event ever held in the nation's capital. Very peaceful, unlike January 6th. I think King is feeling me right there. But it's also the first day of my freedom after I got fired from my good government job with benefits for speaking out. I could have bitten my tongue when I heard this racist comment. I could have let it go from a congressman's wife. But I challenged it. And I lost everything in doing that and challenging that. But in having lost everything at that time, I gained everything that I have now. So it's a question of what we're willing to do. You know, it's also special for me to be here today because 10 years ago, the first time I ever got a media pass representing We Act Radio was for the MLK Memorial Monument celebration. And it was born under hurricane conditions, so everything was moved inside the convention center. So I'm in the convention center, and during that time, there was a luncheon held for whatever fraternity King belonged to. And the luncheon was sponsored by the FBI. And the assistant director of the FBI in 2011 comes on to the podium and to say that the FBI supports the dream of Martin Luther King. And to a round of applause. And only me and one of the camera guys like, you hear this? The FBI is responsible for the assassination of Martin Luther King. Let's call it spade a spade. The reason why Martin Luther King is here and was taken off the stage because he broke ranks with the Lyndon B. Johnson administration, which means he lost his protection, and they turned the FBI loose on him. He made a speech April 4th, 1967 that broke those ranks, and he lost that protection. That's why he was taken off the stage April 4th, 1968. And ever since then, we've been very hesitant to break ranks because we have our comfort. Also at that monument dedication, I met a young lady. Her name was India Reed. Perhaps you heard of her. I was doing one of my first interviews, and I asked her, India Reed, I said, what's your favorite quote from Martin Luther King? She stumbled. I don't know. I can't think of anything, but I tell you, I'm the manifestation of his dream. I'm like, boo-boo. His dream was not for a dark-skinned, nappy-headed black woman to have a successful career and challenge the westernized ideology of what beauty is supposed to be. That was not his dream. Nina Simone beat you to that. Because she felt that her success was his dream. That was not his dream. Yes, he wanted us to have better health care, better housing. He wanted to have justice. But he said that we must change the structure of America, not rest on our laurels. So I'll leave you with this. Y'all familiar with Harry Belafonte? Harry Belafonte was disinvited to Coretta Scott King's funeral. Did y'all know that? Because they had to make room for George Bush. And he was critical of the Bush administration, but they had to be comfortable. Harry Belafonte paid for Martin King's children to go to school. Harry Belafonte paid off Coretta Scott King's house, but he was disinvited for their comfort. This is what we have to call out right here if we're truly going to honor the real legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, because at the time of his death, there was churches that wouldn't allow him to speak in it. Black churches wouldn't allow him to speak in it. People we respect denounced Martin Luther King. So let's tell the whole story and not just do what's comfortable. All of us are familiar with Martin Luther King's last speech, but some of us are not as familiar with his next to his last speech, which was titled Remaining Awake During a Great Revolution. He goes on to say in that speech, was delivered right here in Washington, D.C., March 31st, 1968, that far too often people find themselves living in periods of great social change, but yet they fail to develop new ideas, the new mental responses that the new situation demands. They end up sleeping through a revolution. I submit to you that is the definition of stay woke. One of the last messages from Barbara Dick Gregory, who was one of the people that marched with Martin Luther King. Everybody marched with King, right? Everybody marched with King. But somebody really was there. But Harry Belafonte said his last conversation with Martin Luther King was addressing his regrets over integration. Because y'all do know when he said that I had a dream, he later said, I think that dream has turned into a nightmare. He said he was wondering if he was encouraging his people to integrate into a burning house. Harry Belafonte said, well, what should we do? Martin Luther King said, become firemen. We got to put the fire out. And if we're not putting the fire out and we're just going to sit here and watch the house burn from afar because it's more comfortable, then shame on us. Because we're not honoring the true legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. And to these young people, I want y'all to understand that even though we're in a system right now that promised you $42 billion for your education and now has taken it down to $2 billion for someone else's comfort, you should not accept that. We should not accept that. And we just lost Melvin Van Peebles, and I want to give you something he gave to me, and hopefully it will help you. Melvin Van Peebles said that in life you got two choices. Have what you want or do what you want. If it's have what you want, there must be some things you must be willing to do to have those things. And that's a slippery slope, ain't it? If it's do what you want, there's some things you're not going to have in order to have the ability and the freedom to do those things. So when we at Radio Broadcasting Live on the Radical side of Montague Avenue, we say do something. We are actually saying to step outside your comfort zone and do something. Stay safe, stay strong, stay woke, honor the real legacy of Martin Luther King, and do something. Thank you.
Harry E. Johnson, Sr. heads the Memorial Foundation. Under Johnson's leadership, the MLK Memorial Foundation raised $127 million to complete the memorial. Johnson is a career lawyer, entrepreneur, and public servant. From 2001 to 2004, he served as the national president of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the fraternity to which Dr. King belonged. Johnson has served as city attorney for Kendleton, Texas, taught at Texas Southern University and the Thurgood Marshall School of Law and School of Public Affairs. Johnson received his Doctor of Jurisprudence from Texas Southern University, where he was a member of the Thurgood Marshall Student Bar Association. He completed the post-baccalaureate work in administration at St. Louis University and received his Bachelor of Arts from Xavier University of Louisiana. Johnson has received a number of recognitions for his public service. It was named in Ebony's magazine's 100 Most Influential Black Americans.
Thank you so very much. Good morning. What a beautiful, beautiful day to be at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. I'm Harry Johnson. I'm so proud to be with you. Reverend Corbett, good morning to all of y'all. You brought up something very special that we did bring you out here over 10 years ago to get a peek view of what this memorial would look like. To Leonard Lee and your team, thank you so much for bringing all the young folks together. Let's give it up for the young people out today. Give it up for the young people out today. Few comments, and I keep them very short. Number one, I thank God for the weather, because typically when we're out here, it's either freezing cold, freezing rain, or something. But because of you and your dedication is why we actually built this memorial. Young people, we built the memorial for you. Not for us, but for you. We wanted you all to have a place where you could come and view democracy, justice, hope, and love. We talk enough about hate. We talk enough about racism and all that, but let's talk about democracy, what it really stands for. Let's talk about love, what it really means. Let's talk about coming together with a hope and a sense of hope. I want to also thank Roland Martin and his team over at Black Star Network and Bernice King for streaming this today. They are a big part of what this thing has become. This memorial has become the 5th most visited memorial on the U.S. Capitol grounds. Please give it up for that. We did not know, nor did we believe, number one, that we could even build this memorial. When it was first thought of, Reverend Thompson, I see you back there, when it was first thought of, they thought this memorial was going to cost $1 million. Now, can you imagine 4 or 5 men sitting around a table believing we should build a memorial to Dr. King? Why? To encourage young people of color to come out to the mall and see the vastness of the mall. They thought it was going to cost $1 million. Neither did they know that it was going to cost $127 million that all of you chipped in with your nickel, dimes, and quarters to build this memorial, and we say thank you. At the Memorial Foundation, we do outstanding programming. We do free movies in the summertime. We're here, as Leonard Lee said, when a bit of cold in Dr. King's holiday. And as Reverend said, in April the 4th, we're here. We also have an outstanding social justice fellows program, a youth leadership conference that we do, a conversation series. We want to make sure that people all over understand that the Memorial Foundation stands for more than just a piece of stone. It is really Dr. King going out into the community. This year alone, when everybody was doing the insurrection on the other side of town, we were here giving away 550 boxes of food to the folks who would drive up. We want to do things that make and talk about love and the principles of Dr. King. God bless you. You're right. You're so right, Leonard, that 10 years ago we were out here, got canceled in August because of, first, the earthquake. Who would have thought an earthquake would hit Washington, D.C.? It did damage other things around the city. The one thing that did not damage, the Martin Luther King Memorial got no damage at all. Later on, who would have thought, Reverend, that we would get a hurricane that we had to cancel the dedication? Who would have thought that the memorial really should have been dedicated under the term of President George Bush? But as fate had it, it got dedicated under then President Obama. Give it up for how this memorial has come to be. God bless you and God keep you.
We will now have a musical interlude by Arnold. Here are our Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. 4 tenets. Democracy by Sade L. Herring, Stevenson University. Justice by Jeffrey Prudhomme, TMF, Social Justice Fellow. Hope by Abigail Johnson, TNM, Social Justice Fellow. And Love by Daniel Gagnon, Northwest High School.
Oh, democracy, you and me, different thoughts, different ideals. Red or blue, left or right, politics is never black and white. Share your voice, cast your vote. We all have our reasons to make our own note. Young and old, white or black, we have each other's back. The key is listening, reading, and education, because your acts decides the future of our nation. For years, we have fought for voice and diversity, but it seems when we have it, it creates adversity. So let's fight for change. Just like what Dr. Martin Luther King voiced, the goal of America is freedom. Abused and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up with Americans' rights to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
In his I Have a Dream speech, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. proclaimed, "There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality." Nearly 60 years later, especially after the 2020 police murder of George Floyd and current racial reckoning, we know that the horrors of police brutality and misconduct are still deeply institutionalized and widespread. We know that police departments still perpetuate racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. We will not be satisfied until it's dismantled and justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. We still live in a country that delivers justice for some and most, but not all. And we can't rest until that is so. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We must never adjust to injustice and inequality. Equality is shared privilege, which is why the growing demands for equality and justice in recent years has been met with a growing backlash from those with power and privilege. It was true today, it was true during slavery and Jim Crow, and it's true today during the Black Lives Matter era. Most people don't want others to have access to the social privileges they enjoy, whether consciously or unconsciously, because then it's no longer privilege, it's equality. The root of inequality is power. I want young people here and across the country to know and realize that though power is unequal in America, we must use the power we do have to cement the largest protests in American history and world history just last year. We must continue to push for legislation like the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, the Freedom to Vote Act, and the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and build on the hard-earned progress of those who came before us. Justice won't be delivered for all until we eradicate poverty and demand reparations for long-suffering Black Americans, ensure quality education for all Americans, expand voting rights for all our citizens, and dismantle racism and white supremacy from all systems, institutions, and areas of American life and society, especially the criminal justice system. These are the top civil rights issues of our time. All Americans being treated equally by law enforcement and having an unbiased justice system that is fair and equal to all is a grand part of Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream and vision for America, and it should be yours too. I want young people to be reminded of Martin Luther King Jr.'s message that change does not roll on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle. Human progress is neither automatic or inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. So I hope every young person in the audience and watching around the country today commits their lives, just like Martin Luther King Jr., to his unfinished work and dream, the grand idea of progress, and pledges to become involved with activism, social justice, and changing the world, not for some or most, but for all. I hope you dedicate your lives to making the rough places plain and the crooked places straight. Always know that your efforts matter, that the arc of the moral universe, and that even one person can change the world, and that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Know that true peace is not merely the absence of tension. It is the presence of justice. Thank you.
Good afternoon. How is everyone doing? It's hot. Is anyone else hot? My name is Abby Johnson, and I have the pleasure and honor of speaking on the tenet of hope. I just want to applaud my fellow social justice fellow, Jeffrey, and my uncle, Mr. Johnson, for the opportunity to be here this morning. I want to start by telling a story about myself, because I'm Nigerian. I've always felt like I've had to hide different parts of myself to move and shake in different circles. But the truth is, I'm multidimensional. Don't put me in a box. I'm a child of God. I'm Nigerian, or Naija. Also, October 1st was Nigerian Independence Day, and we are celebrating all month. I'm a daughter, sister, auntie, friend, partner. I have experienced poverty and trauma. I was raised by both black and white parents. That might confuse you. I went to a boarding school. Shout out to Milton Hershey School in rural Hershey, Pennsylvania. But I'll always be a Jersey girl at heart. That's where I grew up. I'm a Hoya. Shout out to Georgetown. I'm also a Panther. That's where I got my public health degree. Shout out to Pittsburgh. I'm also a track star. I ran track at Georgetown University. I process internally. I may be quiet initially, but trust me, I have a lot to say. I can be corporate, and I can be hood. I also quit my government job. I'm a Christian, but I also listen to trap. I am a passionate public servant. I'm a black woman navigating in a field dominated by white men. I'm an entrepreneur. Check out my business, Live Without Apologies. I care deeply about mental health and social justice. I like wings, all flats, fried hard with ranch on the side. There is plenty more, but these are just the highlights. When I finally let go of the Abby that society created of me in my head and crafted my own narrative, I started living and walking in my authentic self. And a lot of people might not recognize me now, but trust me, I'm still the same Abby. I became woke, like a lot of people, last summer during the George Floyd protests. Why do I share all of this? Because stories matter. Zora Neale Hurston once said, if you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. We can no longer be silent. We are hopeful. Let's face it. Who else feels like they've just woken up from one really bad dream? A lot of people have come up and given history lessons about, what it was like building the memorial in 2011. I had been 1 year removed. I was in grad school in 2011. But what were we experiencing? I feel like we're living in a twilight zone. Is this 2011 or is it 2021? We just had, I'm watching the COVID policy debates, the uptick in violence, death and despair, polarization amongst our own people, infighting, climate change, migrant and immigration challenges, voting rights battles, the list goes on and on, the threats for reproductive justice and abortion rights, the fallout from Afghanistan. The mission for social justice has never been greater. Unfortunately, many of us are still enjoying hot human summer, is what I like to call it, because why is it 80 degrees in October? And we do not recognize the threat to our democracy, to our very existence as a people. This is urgent business. I will quote the great senator from the state of New Jersey, Senator Cory Booker, who once said, in a global-based, knowledge-based economy, the most valuable resource a nation has is its youth. Any great society will be measured by one simple question. How are the children? Our children are not well. We have unfinished business. As we approach this new season, I call it either cuffing season or the last season, the final quarter, as we close out the year, let us get to work. Between the pandemic, the reckoning on race, and just trying to do life together, we're all traumatized. I believe we can capitalize on this moment to write a new story. MLK once said, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose hope. As we look back on history, we've had immeasurable wins. I like to look back on history like my fellow presenter, Kimon. So did you know this week in history, Martin Luther King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize? Did you know this time in October was the formation of the Black Panther Party? Did you know that we just celebrated Indigenous Peoples Day? So we have had a lot of wins, but that does not mean that we cannot lose infinite hope. So I leave you with this, I leave everyone with this, is I've shared my story, and what story do we want to share for future generations? I feel like we have the power right now to create the story and the vision for what we want America to look like. My social justice fellow, Jeffrey, just presented a lot of bills that are currently on the table right now. And being a fellow former government employee, I'm bipartisan. So I also call out capitalism. I also call out anything I see wrong. I speak my truth. And what I say is we do not have to conform to the way society says that we have to think. We are our own free-thinking people. And I think that's one of the tenets that Martin Luther King left me with. I know that a lot of people don't know that Martin Luther King marched with a lot of people. We talk about who did Martin Luther King march with? Martin Luther King marched with the Jews. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but I just mean to say that we were unified at the beginning of this civil rights movement. The Rainbow Coalition, I think nowadays we call it something different. The Rainbow Coalition still exists and we can still remain unified. We can call out what we see is wrong and we can march toward freedom. I like to say run towards freedom because I'm a former track star and we cannot remain complacent. So I'm running, I'm no longer marching. You can choose to walk, you can choose to crawl, you can choose to march, or you can choose to run with me. But either way, we're going to get there. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Daniela Gagno, and I am a junior at Northwest High School. I represent the final tenet, which is love. So this is a poem I wrote titled In the Name of Love. If love had a name, I would call her suffering, would say that she is the direct synonym of pain. If love had a name, I would yell at her. I would tell her all the things I hate about her. I would make sure that she hurts the same way she made me hurt. If love had a name. How do you describe the galaxies? How do you describe something so indescribable? How do you explain something so unexplainable? Every day it teaches us something new, something we thought we knew, but we've actually never known. And in the newness we marvel at the galaxies which seem to comprehend way much more than we do. If love had a name, she would be infinite. The way she is found in the most finite things, the way she is heard when a baby cries or a hummingbird sings, the way she is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. If love had a name, she would be galaxy, something we can't understand. We can't study like the billion pieces of sand which fill the beach where I lay on his shoulders, innocently watching the waves crash. Boom, bang, burn. If love had a name, she would be blood shed innocently. She would be Black Lives Matter, the protest, the misery. She would be Afghanistan, the way those young girls stand afraid, alone, silent, compliant, desperate, broken, without hope, hoping for an answer, hoping for a solution. She would be the young boy who cries himself to sleep, blind, looking for God, but not ever being able to see anything else but the knife to his neck as he takes his last breath. If love had a name, then I don't know who to call. If love has a name, then why? Why does she let countless lives be lost, countless girls go missing, countless boys in prison, countless people slaves to a system? Where did love go? Does she even exist? If love had a name, I'd call her a terrorist. All the ugly things. But I can't, because she doesn't. Love doesn't have just one name, can't be classified, can't be subjected, can't be refused, can't be denied. I can't give a love a name because it's not my place to allow it to be defined, restricted to an age, race, gender, or a single life. Love is infinite in the pain, in the passion, in the pleasure, the happiness, tears, fear cannot amount to the power you can find in love, can never amount to the power that you find in love. Ali, Ali, lama shabatani. On the cross, he cried. The world went silent as love suffered, died, was buried. Love is not roses. It's not always sunshine. If I were to give love a name, rather a definition, I would say to crucify. Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause to our fourth speakers. Marilyn Pierre received her law degree from Howard University School of Law in 1990. Marilyn has been practicing law for over 30 years. Marilyn is licensed to practice law in the District of Columbia, the State of Maryland, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the State of New York, and several federal courts, including the Supreme Court of the United States. Marilyn is the recipient of the Daily Record's Leadership in Law Award. She is recognized as a bar leader by the Montgomery County Bar Association and a pro bono star by the Pro Bono Resource Center of Maryland. Marilyn is a 3-time recipient of the Daily Record's Maryland Top 100 Women, and she is admitted to the Daily Record's Maryland Top 100 Women's Circle of Excellence. She is a retired first lieutenant in the United States Army Reserve Military Police Corps, a former court-appointed special advocate, CASA, a former representative on the Montgomery County Landlord-Tenant Affairs Commission, a former legal redress attorney for the NAACP, and a former member of the Maryland State Democratic Central Committee.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, everyone, for putting on such a great service and doing so many great speeches. I really appreciate that. Since we now have become friends, I have to share with you. I do a lot of litigation, and in litigation, you sit around a lot, and you're not allowed to speak unless you're addressing the court. And so what I have learned to do is I have learned to object just so I could stand up. So I am now giving you, we heard some sports analogies earlier. I'm giving you the opportunity to do a 7-inning stretch and just stand up and just stretch your bodies. No judgment. Just, get up and just move around and just stretch out, because I know you've been sitting a lot. I know I've been sitting a lot, and I need to stretch, and it looks weird for me to be doing it up here all by myself, so join me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We're good? Okay, tell me when you could sit down. Take your time. We're in no hurry, right? We're among friends and family members. Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here. I really, really was looking forward to this event, and when Mr. Lee, Leonard Lee, asked me to participate in this, I felt like, oh wow, I have made it. I know, you read about all these awards and things like that, and they're great and wonderful, and not to say anything bad about them, but I do think that I am here because of some of the works of the people who have come before me. And so it is in this light that I want to talk about some of the things that we need to know about as part of our history. We have heard talk about Mbuzo Saba, but do we know what that is? Well, let's talk about it. I think that it is so important to share knowledge with people no matter what age they are, whether they're young and older. And so in sharing our knowledge, we pass on our humanity to the next generation. We pass on what we know to people we are never going to meet, and people who we have never met pass on their knowledge to us. And that's why, even though we don't have wings, we fly higher than any bird. Even though we don't have gills, we swim, and we're able to we're able to stay underwater longer than any fish with gills the size of, a whale. And we also are able to run faster. Well, I'm sorry, we also are able to go faster than any other animal, even though we are not the fastest animals on earth. You look at us and you say, wait a second, we don't have many things to protect us in the animal kingdom. Yet, because we are able to pass knowledge from one generation to another, we build on that. And that is why now I consider us to be at the top of the food chain. So what knowledge do we pass on, and what knowledge have been passed on to us? And I think the knowledge that has been passed on to us are knowledge having to do with the principles of Nguzo Saba. As some of you may know, that Nguzo Saba is considered the, quote, black value system. Nguzo Saba has 7 principles. And the principles was first identified by Dr. Baluana Kawenga, also the founder of Kwanzaa. The first principle of Nguzo Saba is umoja, or unity. This principle encourages us to strive for and maintain unity in the family, the community, the nation, and the race. Unity stresses the importance of togetherness for the family and the community. This is what is referred to in the African saying, quote, I am we, close quote, or, quote, I am because we are, close quote. The second principle of Nguzo Saba is kujichagulia, or self-determination. This principle encourages us to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Self-determination requires that we identify our common interests and make decisions that are in the best interest of our families and our communities. The third principle of Nguzo Saba is ujima, or collective work and responsibility. This principle commands us to build and maintain our community together and to make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems. And it talks about working together to solve those problems together. Collective work and responsibility reminds us of our obligation to the past, the present, and the future. Collective work and responsibility reminds us that we have a role to play in our community, our society, and our world. The fourth principle of Nguzo Saba is ujamaa, or cooperative economics. This principle encourages us to build and maintain our own stores, shops, or other businesses, and to profit from them together. Cooperative economics emphasizes our collective economic strength and encourages us to meet the common needs through mutual support. The fifth principle of Nguzo Saba is nia, or purpose. This principle encourages us to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Purpose encourages us to look within ourselves and set goals that are also beneficial to the community. The sixth principle of Nguzo Saba is kuumba, or creativity. This principle requires us to always do as much as we can in the way that we can in order to leave our community more beautiful than when we inherited it. Creativity makes use of our energies to build and maintain a strong and vibrant community. Finally, the seventh principle of Nguzo Saba is imani, or faith. This principle implores us to believe with all our hearts in our parents, our teachers, our leaders, our people, in the righteousness and victory of our struggle. Faith focuses on honoring the best of our traditions, draws upon the best in ourselves, and helps us strive for a higher level of life for humankind. By affirming our self-worth and confidence in our ability to succeed and triumph the righteous struggle. The 7 principles of Nguzo Saba are essential for personal and social excellence. They direct us to build and sustain a moral community. They strengthen and maintain our community's ability to develop in the most positive and productive way. We cannot discuss our community's most positive and productive sense without discussing the man who is memorialized on this sacred ground. Martin Luther King Jr., or, this is a good trivia question for you young people, was actually born Michael King Jr. How many of you knew that? Good, very good. See, you guys are so far ahead of everybody else. Okay. He was born on January 15, 1929. If Reverend King had not gone to meet our ancestors already, he would be 92 years old this year. 92. And I know a lot of us are like, wow, he would have been really old. But then we have to remember that Samuel Black, who worked along Martin Luther King Jr., as well as President Barack Obama, just died this week at the age of 102 years old. Could you imagine what it would have been like to have had the two of them and some of our other ancestors who have gone too early with us, fighting the fights that we are fighting these days? Reverend King was an American Baptist minister and activist who became the face of the civil rights movement. Reverend King advanced civil rights through nonviolence and civil Reverend King advanced civil rights through nonviolence and civil disobedience. He was inspired to do so by his Christian beliefs and the movement of nonviolent activism of Mahatma Gandhi. Reverend King participated and led in marches demanding desegregation, labor rights, and affirming the right of blacks to vote in the United States. On October 14, 1964, Reverend King won the Nobel Peace Prize for his tireless battle against racial inequality through nonviolent resistance. In 1965, he helped organize 2 of the 3 marches from Selma, Alabama, to the state's capital of Montgomery, Alabama. In his final years, Reverend King broadened his scope to include opposition against poverty, capitalism, and the Vietnam War. In 1968, Reverend King was planning the Poor People's Campaign, a national occupation in Washington, D.C., when he was assassinated on April 4th. He was only 39 years old at that time. Reverend King is known for his beautiful baritone voice, his eloquence, and his ability to speak truth to power. What many people may not know is that the people who knew him said he was shy, modest, unassuming. He couldn't believe some of the responsibilities that was being put upon him. He couldn't believe that he was called to lead this movement. But yet, when he was called to lead this movement, he was able to meet, and I would argue even surpass, what he was asked to do. We talk about the principles of Nguzo Saba and Martin Luther King Jr. to remind us of our greatness. We must hold fast to our principles with awareness of what our forefathers have done and the knowledge that the road will not be easy. When things get tough, we must remember that our ancestors have given us everything that we need to thrive. We can soar higher than an eagle, breathe deeper than a whale, and speed faster than a cheetah. We are greatness personified. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We must claim our place in the world for ourselves. There is no need to wait for someone to deem us worthy. We've known our greatness since birth. Ashe, and thank you all.
We will now have a musical interlude by Kelvin Dukes.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Kelvin Dukes. I am now 16 years old, and today I am going to be singing A Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. A cappella. Okay. I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard to live in, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. So I go to the movies and I go downtown. Someone keeps telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. Thank you.
We'll have a benediction by Kai Corbett.
May the strength of God sustain us. May the power of God preserve us. May the hands of God protect us. May the way of God direct us. May the love of God go with us this moment and forever. Amen and Ashe.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will.